Hello, please enjoy this preview of this Patreon exclusive episode. If you're interested in hearing the episode now, please consider subscribing to us by visiting patreon.com/Shawinigan Moments. We aim to have a bonus episode on Canadian-related topics each month, and we'll use the money we raise to help support the show and our work. Thanks.
I am a firearms owner, as are many in my family, and unfortunately, my brother's in-laws are the sort that have become a little bit Facebook and Fox News brained, and every now and then will slip up and start talking about their Second Amendment right. So that sort of begged the question, like, we do have a constitution here. What is our Second Amendment to the Constitution?
Oh, it's covered in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? I think it has something to do with provinces existing.
No, the Second Amendment to our Constitution is from 1868, and it's the ratification of the Rupert's Land Act, which transferred all the land that the Hudson's Bay Company ruled over to the Dominion of Canada. So, I in fact do enjoy my constitutional rights. My constitutional right to go to the Yukon or Alberta and not be under the auspices of the Hudson Bay Company.
Keep the Hudson's Bay Company's hands off my land.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the plot thickens mildly, because there also is another set of constitutional amendments. These proposed by primarily the provinces, primarily the province of Quebec. And you know what? I am a huge fan of that Second Amendment, because in 1867, they deleted the oath of the allegiance to the Canadian monarch from the oath of office in Quebec's National Assembly.
You know what? That's a good amendment.
That is a fantastic amendment. I stan our Second Amendment.
Was this as early as 2022? Or as late as 2022, rather?
Yes.
Holy crap.
Yeah, they started in 2022, and then Saskatchewan First Act of 2023, which we do not stan.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about, the 2023 one, and yeah, he should have been thrown in jail for much longer for that DUI charge, because he killed somebody.
The Saskatchewan First Act provides Saskatchewan autonomy with respect to all matters falling under its executive legal jurisdiction, which is bullshit. I
love this country.
Yeah.
All right, you want to start the show?
Sure.
1, 2, 3.
Hello and welcome to the Shawinigan Moments podcast. You know it's Heather and Tamarack. We don't need to introduce ourselves. This is a special Patreon-only episode. If you're listening to this, it either means, well, you're a patron or you pirated it. Or somehow, I guess, down the road we decide to unlock it because we can't record an extra episode during whatever time period we're in. But we have a guest.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Misty. I'm not a usual podcast speaker, but I feel it's my national duty to perform for CanCon when I'm called.
And boy, do we ever have a lot to talk about with CanCon on this show, but we can only do them on the bonus episodes because our entire series, or rather show, is on a CanCon. It is qualified as CanCon under the CRTC. But I guess to kind of give you all an idea here, when I say video games, what do you all first think of?
I'm mildly poisoned because I still think of the subject of this show.
Misty, do you have anything?
I just feel like it dates us that it immediately comes to mind.
Well, growing up, all of us grew up in Canada. Myself grew up in Vancouver, Tamarack in the interior. Misty, where did you grow up?
Grew up in Nova Scotia.
So, we got two spectrums of the country.
We got full coastal coverage.
Yeah, right. We forgot about the other coast, though.
Sorry, we have 2/3 coastal coverage.
Everybody seems to forget about the Arctic. Like we might have that one person that lives up in like, was it Nunavik or Tuktoyaktuk or whatever?
If you live in any of the territories and want to be a guest, please send us an email at mailbag@shawiniganmoments.ca.
I will personally like make certain you can be on the show if you think the vibes are good. I'd be actually impressed if you could actually get broadband service up there that's good enough to do a recording like this.
It's fine. You could record offline and then just sneak
you
your edit over.
Could you just imagine just doing a podcast by letter mail, like just sending USB sticks around by Canada Post and saying like having each bit of the conversation slowly being increased by like numbered WAV files?
Or you send a single like not VHS, but a recording, a tape recording around. Just keep adding to it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go play a little bit of a musical clip here. Hopefully this doesn't get us dinged by any sort of copyright stuff. I don't think it will, but I'm certain that this is going to jumpstart the memories of many people who grew up watching youth television. So here we go.
The only show around where you get to see the latest and greatest video games on planet Earth. Only on this show will you learn all there is to know about your absolute favorite video games.
That's right. That is the opening bit from Video and Arcade Top 10. It is a TV show that basically had speedrunning on national television.
Yes. And I also want to clarify for the audience. Professionally, I am a game developer, and still when video games, like the word enters my brain, this is where it goes.
Now, I watched this show as a kid, but did the both of you do so as well?
I did.
Oh,
sure
yeah.
did.
Yeah, this show definitely was on the air pretty much. I want to say it was on a couple times a week, but it originally aired on YTV, aka Youth Television, from September 1991 to November of 2006, with a grand total of 768 episodes, making it one of the longest running TV shows on English language television in Canada. It's only bested by the CBC show Front Page Challenge, which strangely enough, I think I made an appearance on when I was 9 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if anyone is like trying to remember what this TV show is, if they're of a certain age, they'll remember it. It didn't last much longer when the last host was on, which was Jack Webster. And if you know who Jack Webster is, you definitely grew up in British Columbia.
True early claim to fame there.
Yes. I actually got to meet Robert Munch on that show, so that was really cool. Yeah, that's why I have a huge affinity for Robert Munch. The premise of the show was to get competitors to get a high score or the furthest in a video game during the course of a half hour, or rather during the course of a half of the show, since they often would show two games. And for the first season, it was hosted by YTV personality, or PJ, Gordon Michael Wolbit. And he's most notable for his starring role in the syndicated TV show Andromeda, alongside the likes of the Mel Gibson defending Christian film producer Kevin Sorbo.
We do not stan.
Yeah, no.
Definitely don't stan.
I liked Andromeda. It wasn't that bad of a show, but it's tainted by Kevin Sorbo.
I was trying to find out if like PJ Gord was on anything else, but I couldn't find anything.
He's an acting school teacher these days. We're going to talk about him though.
Really?
Yeah. All the subsequent seasons were hosted by Nicholas Pickles, which is in fact his real name. But we'll get to that in a bit. For those of you who are not familiar with YTV, it first aired in Canada on September 1st, 1988, originally owned by Rogers Entertainment. On its first day, hosted in special by John Candy.
Oh,
so I think it had a live broadcast, which was not like live broadcasts on YTV existed when they had the Zone, although they recently got rid of their on-air personalities, I think about 2 years ago. So like YTV is definitely a shell of itself, but Americans,
that makes sense why there was like such a component of like you had like the cutaways to the PJs, and like a lot of times they would kind of simulate like a larger studio, or I think they even had like some either fake or real audience for some of the segments. So that makes sense.
We're going to be talking about the audience in this show because it kind of shows like the decline of the series over time. I have 2 audio clips I'm really interested in playing for you both.
Potential future subject, the television game show Uh-Oh also has a similar thing.
That would be so much fun to talk about. So, Americans, if you're not familiar, if you're still a bit lost on what YTV is, just think of Nickelodeon. Like, YTV was Canada's answer to Nickelodeon. And the main reason why it existed is because Nickelodeon could not exist in its current form or its contemporary form in 1991 due to rules enforced by the Canadian Radio and Telecommunications Commission, or the CRTC, which ensured that Canadian content had a share of broadcast, radio, cable TV, that sort of thing. Some of the rules included that because YTV ended up having a lot of Canadian content, because 60% of it had to be made in Canada, although in 2010, after review, it was lowered to 55%. I imagine this was some sort of Harper decision. The other thing is that to qualify as made in Canada, it had to include like a producer who was a resident or a citizen of the country. Certain quotas for cast members and screenwriters all had to be Canadian. And other things included like roles within productions had to be credited to Canadians, so like producer and production manager.
If you as an American have ever wondered why there are so many Canadians in like television and like TV animation in particular, this is why.
Yeah, and as a result, that's also why 75% of production and post-production has to be done in Canada. Like, there's a lot of television made in Canada, and it's largely because we have these rules in place because there's a fear of being too Americanized or whatever.
Which in our cold open has not been working so great.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna dive right in, and you gave me an audio clip, and I might just use it for each part.
Yeah, that was the point.
Okay, well, let's do this. All right. So
you're welcome.
I have selected, God damn it, selected 4 episodes for us to watch. And I feel like they all demonstrate the sort of change in the show and all that. And I wanted to start off with what was labeled as episode 1, but I suspect is probably later into the series because they had things like letters and everything being read on air. But let's start this off here. So we're introduced to all the kids. Every kid gets introduced. And we also are like told like what are the prizes being given out. Like we get a consolation prize given out to the kids. The game handler. Have you all seen the game handler?
The game handler?
Yeah.
Game handler.
It's for the NES. It's like a one-handed controller. I'll drop this in the chat here. I realized here's an eBay listing for it.
Oh, this thing.
Oh, huh.
Yes.
So that's a weird plug.
I'm sorry, what?
It's got like this double-ended plug thing on the bottom.
Oh, I see what you mean. I was a little thrown off by that statement.
That was not how I interpreted that either. I was like, if you're into that, I guess.
Okay, thanks, Tamara. Yeah, so this is the controller. It's very strange looking. This is one of the prizes, and this is one of the things. The kids aren't playing for money. They're playing for an opportunity to get something from the prize wall, and often they would have all sorts of weird prizes. And in this episode, we're playing Battle Clash SS6, and of course, I have purposely spelt it wrong because it's spelt wrong in the episode. So the SS6 stands for the Super Scope 6,
which I had.
You had a Super Scope?
You had a Super Scope?
I had a Super Scope. Like
what? Rare few.
Yeah, it's okay. The Super Scope is like the highest quality of the light guns of that era in the worst form factor.
Fair enough.
Bizarrely pinpoint precision on that sucker. Like it was a really good system. It just was unfortunate that it was in that form. As a light gun, it would have been perfect.
So I did make mention of the video game, but do you know how long it took for them to start playing any video games on this 24-minute episode?
It was like at the screaming end, no?
No, it was 4 minutes in. So 4 minutes in, we're finally seeing some people play video games. So they spent the first 4 minutes just talking about who the kids are. So that took about a minute. And then they introduced the game handler. And then finally, after that period of time, we get to see some video game action.
Sorry, this was the one that I watched like way back and didn't rewatch the night before. I like that they spent a bunch of time on the game handler, but they don't really spend a lot of time introducing the other weird controller that they're using, the Super Scope. They're just like, here you go, kids, fucking figure it out.
Yeah, here's a gun, use it on TV.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that we lasted about 1 minute, and then we go to Nicholas Pickles talking about a video game tip.
Yes.
And that segment lasts a little over a minute.
Yeah, this sort of is like a recurring segment that kind of becomes more topical, where they like just cut away and talk about a tip. Sometimes not even for the game that is being featured. I think actually oftentimes not even a game that's featured.
I didn't note the game, but what was the game tip?
Super Mario Land, something about it.
Did any of you play Mario Land? I did.
Yeah, I played Mario Land.
I got my Game Boy too late. I had a Game Boy Color, so it was just a Pokemon machine. And still is.
I didn't have my own copy, but it was one of those ones where, you'd be trading cartridges with friends on the bus somewhere, play a friend's copy.
I didn't get Mario Land until like 1995, and I probably played through that game like a million times. I just heard somebody's Game Boy go on.
Me.
God damn it.
I keep it right here.
Of course you do.
I have a living Pokedex on Pokemon Red and Blue.
Oh dear. So we go back to the game action, and Lisa is asking Gord about how to beat the game. And what's interesting is these two have really awkward chemistry.
So awkward.
It is awkward. And the main reason why it's awkward is because the two of them ended up starring in Andromeda later.
Interesting. They both have two distinctly very high quality genders, though, so I'm willing to let it pass.
And then finally, after another minute of them talking about how to beat the game, we go to talking about the Pioneer Laserdisc karaoke system.
Yes.
Misty, tell us about this.
Yeah, so Laserdisc was the high-end video format of the 90s. It didn't hugely take off in North America, but partly just because it was expensive to get the players. So it was for people who had a lot of money or who really cared about stuff. But karaoke was where it was really big. A lot of people who bothered getting Laserdisc at all did it because the really good karaoke was on there.
Did they have like a data layer on there that they're able to like put the lyrics on the tracks? Is that kind of why?
So it's like it had multiple audio tracks, up to 4 audio tracks, up to 4 mono audio tracks or 2 stereo tracks on one disc. So you can switch between versions with lyrics or versions without, or you can have, mix the audio level or what have you as you're playing kind of thing, which is something you couldn't really do on VHS.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So Lisa's going to go over the Laserdiscs that were in the top 5. I didn't make a clip of this, but I will play a clip in the next for the next episode. But here are the top 5 movies, starting in descending order: White Men Can't Jump, Wayne's World, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, The Lawnmower Man, and Fried Green Tomatoes. I'm
fascinated by these choices.
I need to know who picks these, because they do game like rankings as well, and like where do these come from? Who decides these?
Well, here's
like the age rating for the show itself. It's clearly targeted at what, ages 7 to 12.
Yeah.
I'm going to make this worse for y'all because I posted about this on cohost.org about a year and a half ago. And it reflects the movies, but like White Men Can't Jump is rated R.
Yeah.
And so is Lawnmower Man, I think.
Also, I'm sure you have this in the script, but top 5? Top 5?
Well, we're going to be talking about why it's top 10. You're going to notice a pattern as we go through this episode about why, or rather, there's like no top 10 at any point in this show.
No, and like the video games aren't a top 10, aren't a top 5 either. So it's not like they sum together to be a top 10.
So here's our trivia question for so you can win like a Laserdisc or something. What TV show did Wayne's World premiere on?
I have no fucking idea. And the
Saturday Night
ability
Live?
Yeah, Misty got it right. A show meant for children who stay up until 11:30 watching Global.
Yeah, no Laserdisc for me, which I think is honestly a blessing, because, like, okay, you get the player, but the discs themselves are really expensive, and chances are your parents have only VHSs.
Misty, what's the MSRP on the Pioneer Laserdisc player or any of these movies?
And these higher end players would definitely be in the hundreds and hundreds of dollars. These weren't going to be cheap, and the movies were probably going to be like, what, $80? I mean, this buying VHS was expensive at the time, but most people were renting most of their movies
That's
anyway, and
true.
most video stores were renting VHS. You had fewer options for renting something else, so it's, I don't know. I'm sure they were just being sponsored by Pioneer to get this stuff out there, but the
they were.
Oh,
question I
you
have
are
is,
correct.
like, why did Pioneer think this was the option to get these extremely expensive players and movies for adults in front of an audience of mostly young children?
Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard, please do consider subscribing to our Patreon by visiting patreon.com/Shawinigan Moments.